Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Thursday. Glad you're here. Today's Red Mic message, a raised hand. Not even sure if I like that title. Couldn't come up with anything better. Uh, First, a shout out to my best friend, Joe Fideli. Joe is a referee and umpire. And for a long time, I would make the joke with him. When he was telling me he was going to go officiate a game, I'd go, "Oh, yeah, who are you officiating against?" And it always got under his skin. He was like, "Oh, I don't officiate against anybody." Well, here's a story of where I think the officials, they may have not been actively officiating against this team, but it sure seems to me like they had an axe to grind. Here, let's get a little bit more into it. And I actually saw this, initially, I saw this as a tweet from RG3. So if you don't know who RG3 is, that's on you, not me. Anyway, Mallard Creek High School should be celebrating a state championship in track right now. But instead, the entire conversation has become about how an official decided that a teenager raising their hand before the finish line was somehow worthy of stripping an entire team of their title. During the final event of the North Carolina High School State Athletic NCHSAA state track meet, Mallard Creek anchor runner Nyan Brown, he crossed the line way in front of the field in the 4x400 relay. Right before the finish, he raised his hand with 5 fingers extended, signaling what would have been the state's 5th consecutive track championship. Officials called it taunting. The relay team was disqualified. Mallard Creek lost points, and the team lost the state championship by 2 points. Now, here's the paper trail versus the truth. You're going to have to figure out which you think is right. There is some context that didn't end up in the tweet, and I understand that. Um, Officials with the NCHSAA say this was not an isolated incident. Earlier in the meet, Brown broke a nearly 20-year state record in the 300-meter hurdles. After crossing the line, officials alleged he flexed towards photographers and was given an official warning for unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, according to the association, that prior warning is the only reason the hand gesture during the relay triggered an automatic disqualification. But the story's messy. Mallard Creek's head coach and Brown both strongly deny that any warning was ever issued. The coach has publicly accused the officials of essentially fabricating the warning after the fact to justify the disqualification once the national backlash started. And I think this dispute matters. Now, if a warning truly happened, you can at least understand the rigid procedural argument that the officials are trying to make, even if you hate the outcome. But if no warning actually occurred, the situation looks a lot worse. You're talking about an institution retroactively building a paper trail to justify erasing an entire team's achievement. That's why the school has bypassed the athletic association entirely, and they've taken their appeal directly to the State Board of Education because they want to be recognized as co-state champions. Now, the reason this story exploded nationally, in my opinion, is because most people instinctively understand that common sense has to matter. I mean, think about the sheer scale of what was undone. Months of grueling training, summer workouts when very few people are watching, endless conditioning systems, weight room hours, practices in the heat, ice baths, missed weekends, immense pressure, heavy expectations, and all of it erased over a split second gesture that harmed absolutely nobody. I mean, rules matter. You know that I believe that in my heart. Sportsmanship matters, discipline matters, but judgment should matter too. There is a massive, unmistakable difference between humiliating an opponent and expressing pure joy after accomplishing something extraordinary. This wasn't fighting, it wasn't profanity, it wasn't physical conduct, it wasn't interfering with another runner. It wasn't like he got in another runner's face and went, ha 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 ha. He didn't do that. This was a kid celebrating during one of the biggest moments of his young life. I tried always very hard to never question calls. The only times I would get mad at officials and say anything at all is if it was pretty clear that they were ignoring things that were patently unsafe. You know, a patent, a obvious horse collar or face mask or, a spear, things that could permanently injure a kid that I was coaching. It especially rubbed me the wrong way if they were being called one way. They were calling us for the, stuff like that, which we deserve. That's fine. But call it both ways, they're blue. Too many people in positions of authority have stopped asking, what is the purpose of this rule? Getting back to the Mallard thing. Instead, they only ask, can I find a way to enforce it? It's the wrong mindset. If enforcement becomes entirely disconnected from common sense, people are going to eventually stop respecting the institution itself. The best officials, like my buddy Joe, they understand that their job is to keep the event safe, fair, and orderly, not to become the central characters in the memory of the event. Nobody should remember the official more than the athletes. But increasingly in sports, schools, workplaces, government, we see situations where someone with a badge or a clipboard, they feel compelled to prove that they are in charge, even where restraint would really serve everybody better. Athletes should show class, but class is not the absence of emotion. Sports are emotional by design. We celebrate walk-off home runs, game-winning touchdowns, buzzer beaters, and Olympic gold medals. We love dog piles, the victory laps, players pointing to the sky, and teams dumping coolers on their coaches. We tell athletes to dedicate themselves completely to winning, and we glorify competitiveness and we romanticize passion. And I think we should. But then suddenly, when a teenager shows visible excitement at achieving, again, something extraordinary, adults clutch their pearls and start talking like he committed some kind of moral offense. That's that's foolishness. That makes no sense whatsoever. If a player is mocking an opponent directly, cheap shotting them, trying to humiliate another team, fine. Address that. But if your enforcement creates a bigger injustice, enforcement has failed. Authority gives you the ability to punish. Wisdom is knowing when punishment serves no meaningful purpose. And that's today's Red Mike message. Shout out again to my buddy Joe Fideli up in Oklahoma City. And I hope things go the right way for Mallard. Sounds to me like they deserve it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would appreciate that. Last few days, I've gotten a few trolls, which is kind of interesting. I'm going to respond when I can, calmly. I'm going to take the higher road. Haven't blocked anybody yet, but I suspect that might happen. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. And until next time, don't forget, as always, life is short. Drink the bourbon.